is Rachel, and welcome to my channel, Ford Family Funds. Here on my channel, I like to do budget updates. I like to share my personal finance journey, what I'm doing to save dollars one budget at a time. I'm in the process of buying my first house, and I've been posting since the start of the year how I'm doing month to month and some grocery hauls and other things relating to personal finance. So if you like this type of content, hit the subscribe button, join me on my journey. And for those that are returning, welcome back. I'm so happy to be here and to have you here with me listening along as I am sharing about my progress. So in today's video, I actually want to share about my private student loan Navient. So I am currently 39 years old, soon to be 40. And I have had this pesky student loan for almost 20 years. Yep, it's been that long. I just recently paid it off in March. I was able to, make some extra payments for the first few months of January and get that balance down. And I had a remaining $1,000. I was able to make one big payment and then borrow some money from my savings account and pay the rest of that pesky student loan off. So goodbye, Felicia. Goodbye, Navient student loan. Get out of my life and never come back. So a couple months ago, I started to make this series, and then life happens as a full-time school teacher, as well as a toddler mama, and budgeting and taking care of my family. It's just life and it gets busy. So I had initially filmed this and it was very long, and I decided instead to just share with you a recap that seems to be working better for me than filming while I'm in the process. I just think it just takes a little bit long, and then I kind of shuffle things around, and I feel like I'm saying the wrong things and it's confusing, maybe not interesting. So I don't know. I keep playing around with it. So I think this is the third time I have refilmed this loan history, but for the first time doing voiceover with what I have here. I've tried out filming while my son is sleeping, and then with the intention of doing voiceover on my computer, which I could have done it that way, but I just decided I would refilm and talk while I show you my recap. So what I did is, this is going to be a two-part series. So in part one, I went through my loan and I looked at the first 10 years of my loan, and I identified, or I looked at, how much in interest I spent, or that I paid off, how much capitalized interest I accrued, what my principal payments were, and I thought I would share with you a little bit more story and background relating to my student loan. So let's see. All right. Okay. So I was just checking my papers here. So here is my original disbursement. Okay, so original disbursement was $22,949. This is when I was in college from 1999 to 2003 for my undergraduate degrees, or my undergraduate degree. I have my undergrad, and then I also have 2 master's degrees. So that's part of my story, is that I had this loan during the time when I was earning my master's, 2 of them, and therefore different periods of putting this loan on hold while I was in school. So you'll see how that has contributed to where I am now, 20 years later, paying off this pesky student loan. So at the time, there was fees of $336.48. There was a payment of $6,210.93. I don't know if that was a payment that I had made, my mom had made. I'm really not sure, but it shows up in my profile history. I had capitalized interest of $1,113.85. And then there was also a refund of $85.93. So as of December 2003, my balance was $18,102.47. So I am counting that as my original balance because I'm not quite sure exactly what was going on here. It was so long ago. But I know this balance is what I started to pay when I, was done my grace period. I had graduated in May of 2003 for my undergrad. And then by December, I was starting to make payments. So going to this side. So in 2003, I only really made that one payment in December. $102.70 went to principal. $54.03 went to interest. So at this time in my life, December of 2003, I had graduated school in May. I went to University of Hartford for my first 2 years of undergraduate school. And then I went to New York University for my junior and senior years. After graduating from New York University in May of 2003, I got a job waitressing. I moved into an apartment in Brooklyn, and I was trying to figure things out. It wasn't going that well, I can tell you. Looking back now, I was really struggling. I did not have parents that could help me pay for a lifestyle in New York City. I was living really far away from all my friends. I was working at this restaurant and having to get there for 6 a.m. And I was really unhappy. In September, I lost that job, and that pushed me to pursue work relating to my art history degree. Many of my friends were interning and starting to, make their way into the museum field, which is what I had wanted to do. But again, I didn't have the money to pay for an apartment and all of that while also doing a free internship for a few years. That's typically the track on how to get into a museum job, or even go back to school and get my master's for museum education or for museum studies. I could have done that, but I had just spent around $75,000 of loans to get my undergraduate degree, and I did not want to accrue any more debt at that time. So in December 2003, in that fall, I had gotten a job working for an antique advertising company. That wasn't going that well. And my grandmother was really sick, and my mom, was like, why don't you move home? So I did. I moved back home to the state of New Hampshire and got a job waitressing at a restaurant that was just opening. And I continued working at that restaurant for 4 years. I lived with my mom. Then I moved in with some friends. Then I lived on my own and got my first master's degree by the time I was 25 in art education with an interest in museum studies. And then it was after getting my master's that I got my first teaching job, where I was hired as an adjunct lecturer teaching art history at the school where I had just gotten my master's. So that was a really great opportunity, but it was not paying enough money. I didn't have any benefits. I was working 80 hours a week between teaching and bartending and waitressing and doing museum programming and visiting schools. I was really trying to make something for myself. And in many ways I was, and getting some great experiences, but I wasn't making enough money. Literally, I was going into debt on my credit cards more and more and more. So that's kind of what's going on as I am making these payments in my first 10 years, my first few years of my Navient student loan, because I also have my federal student loans. I had another private loan with Citibank, actually 2 private loans with Citibank that I was paying off. Plus I had my credit cards, plus I had a car loan. And so there was a lot. I had put way too much on my plate, and I was not being realistic as to what I could really afford. And that's why I'm making this video. So if you're watching this, I want you to, gain from my experience, and, to say, yeah, I need to understand how much interest I'm paying right from the very beginning. I need to look at all of my bills and all of my debts and all of my interest payments versus principal payments, and make sure that I have that understanding so that way I can make the best decisions for myself, right? That's the things that I want you to take away from my experience, from this video and me sharing about it. So 2004, I did make a few more payments. So in the course of that year, and this is when I was waitressing, I made $760 of principal payments and paid over $1,100 in interest. And then 2005 is when I was back in school. So I did a deferment and I did not make any payments in 2005. I actually stopped payments in 2004. And then I had a capitalized interest fee of $844.12. So capitalized interest basically means that after not paying interest, that interest goes onto the principal balance. And then on the principal balance, you get charged your interest. So when you have capitalized interest, that's basically interest fees being added back onto the principal, then you're paying interest on the capitalized interest. That's how these student loans get you. And I knew that at the time, but again, I was trying to figure things out. You know, I was in my early 20s to mid 20s and was not making enough money. And yeah, you know, that's just where I was. So 2006, at the end of that year, I started making payments again, $171.54. And then I had some late fees as well as interest of almost $300 and more capitalized interest of $2,085.08. So I had graduated in August of 2006. I finished my classes and I got my job working for the school where I had studied. And I also started working freelance and volunteering at a museum. And that was going well too, but again, not turning into a full-time position. So in 2007, I made a few payments. But in this case, I was really struggling financially, and I remember I had to do a forbearance. So in a forbearance, basically you stop making payments and you are then capitalized on top of that because you didn't make the payments of your interest that you had accrued. So in 2007, I did make $245 of interest payments, but then I have capitalized interest of $994. And similarly in 2008, so you can see the same pattern. And in 2008, that is actually when I decided to change my life. I moved in with some family. At the time, I had a house that I was renting, very cheap house, you know, $350 a month for rent, very, very low. But the house was not insulated well and the oil was outrageous and I could not afford it. So in 2008, I moved in with some family, but I moved south in New Hampshire and I continued working, waitressing, you know, doing some freelance work for museums as well as instructing for teaching art history. But I was not paying my loans because again, I just wasn't making enough money. And it's in that year that I actually met my husband. And in the summertime of that year, 2008, I quit all my jobs. I just was like, I can't do this. And I had to reevaluate and figure out what I was going to do. So I ended up getting a job selling artwork at a mall. Not what I thought I'd be doing, but it's what I needed to do at the time. And I actually worked there for like about 4 years selling artwork. And it was a great job to have because I was able to go back to school and get my master's in social studies. And then I was also able to do my internships and do everything I needed for that degree. So again, in 2008, you can see I did pay around $1,500 towards interest. So I was making payments, but I wasn't making any payments to the principal or to the capitalized interest that I had already accrued. And then I even accrued more capitalized interest of almost $1,100. Now, 2009 is when I was back in school and I made a small principal amount. I had some late fees. So that's another pattern here, is I have late fees happening in these few years. And then in interest, I paid $12.36. In 2010, I was back in school again. So now getting my master's in social studies education. And I had one payment towards interest and then capitalized interest of $1,035. In 2011, I graduated with my second master's. I started working. Well, I should say I was already still working at the art gallery, selling artwork. And that was a commission job, but again, not that great of commission compared to other like fine art galleries. But again, it was a job, and I had a health insurance and it was stable. And at this point, my husband and I had moved into an apartment together. We were still together, raising my stepsons when they were little. 2011, I got my first job teaching social studies, but it was a long-term substitute position. So I started to make some more headway on my bills. In 2011, I actually tried out blogging, and I had a personal finance website, and I had a little bit of a following, but again, I wasn't consistent with it. So it grew slowly, and after about, I don't know, maybe 2 years, I decided not to do it anymore. So 2011 is also when I started budgeting. I can go back as far as 2011 on my computer to all the various spreadsheets that I had. And there I can see too, these payments. But this was all found on the website for Navient. So 2011, $673.99, late fees that year of $32, interest, I did pay $665, and capitalized interest of $731, because I was in school until May of 2011. 2012, things start to get better. So I got my second full-time long-term substitute position at the same school I had worked at in 2011. And then I was also doing some other part-time jobs. So at the time I was teaching, I was tutoring, I was doing an art advocacy project, and also working at a house taking care of a girl with autism, while also raising my sons and working at the gallery that I worked at part-time. So there was still, a combination of income coming in, because with the long-term substitute position, I wasn't full-time with a salary and benefits. I think I did have health insurance that year because I qualified at 3/4 of a position. And therefore you can see too in our payments, 2012, $1,500 went to principal, some late fees, interest of almost $1,200. And it was in this time too that my husband relaunched his business. So things were getting better for him as he was getting clients and starting to, build his business. So it was in 2012, I even marked that I started paying $230 a month consistently. So that was my monthly target amount, was $230. And then from January 2013 until June of 2013, I paid almost $1,000 towards principal, some late fees, and interest of $663. And this was the last time that I was late. So I made note of that. So in total, from the time of December 2003, so this is really December, until June of 2013. So in 10 years time, for principal, I had paid $4,200. And I had $150 of fees, late fees. I had paid almost $7,000 towards interest in that time. But I also had over $6,700 of capitalized interest. So by adding all of this up, in a total of 10 years, I had paid $11,295.11. But then I had this capitalized interest of $67.78 and that was added on to my principal balance. So that actually brought my loan up from where it was initially. So looking at these numbers, it was just like, wow, like I can't believe I was not paying attention. But I remember just feeling so overwhelmed. How am I going to do this? How am I going to pay this off? I have all these other debts. I have all these other things going on. I don't have a full-time job. All these different things, and therefore, anxiety and depression that was impacting my mental health at the time. And I was, overcoming a lot. I have to give myself credit for that. But at the same time, this was a very costly lesson that I made. So 2003 balance, $18,000. Capitalized interest of $67.78. In these 10 years, I paid $42.50 towards principal. So therefore, my loan balance went up to $20,631.48. And in July of 2013, my loan was sold from Sallie Mae to Navient. So the whole time, those first 10 years, I was actually paying Sallie Mae, a different loan company that actually went belly up, and the government had to bail out, and therefore the loans got transferred to different companies, and Navient was that company to take over. So with some fees added on, my balance at the time of July 2013 was $20,854.17. So that 10 years later is $2,751.70 more than the original balance of this loan. But I had paid almost over $11,000, right? I had paid over $11,000, but yet my balance was higher by almost $3,000. Like, that's just crazy. And this just shows how awful these loans are. And, yes, it helped me get an education. And I can look back and say, oh, I really should have made some different choices about my education, but I can't change that. And I'm so thankful for the knowledge that I have that's helped me as a teacher today. And it's what I was drawn to do. And I can't fault myself for that. And I was surviving and I was doing the best that I could, but seeing the numbers, it's just disheartening. And again, I'm making this video because I want you to see this and to learn from me and to say, you know what, I'm going to start tracking how much I'm paying in interest right now. And if you are not doing that, start doing it and looking at, okay, I'm paying this much in interest every single year. If I could add this much more each month onto my bill, onto my payment, that's going to make a big difference long term. And that awareness, as I'm now moving forward with getting a mortgage, as we're paying off my husband's van, as we're going to be paying off my car once I move it into a loan, all those things are going, this knowledge is going to help me in paying off those loans even quicker. And that's something I want to do here on my channel, is showing you guys how I'm doing with my mortgage payoff and getting that PMI off of the mortgage when we get to that point, of closing and everything, and using, the same knowledge, the same awareness to track every single month, every single year, how much I'm paying and how much I'm saving, right, in the long term. So this is the first video that I have for you. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. Comment below, what do you think about this? Like, are you tracking your interest? Are you aware of how much you're paying every month? Do you have a similar loan story as me? I'd love to hear it in the comments. Join me here on my journey. Click the subscribe, like, share to your friends. I'd love to get the word out as I am sharing about my journey here on Ford Family Funds. See you next time.